The Auburn Tigers found a way. They take down Arkansas 67-60.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome into this special live edition of Locked On Auburn, recapping Auburn's win over Arkansas 67-60. Everyone who watched that game knows that the game was much closer than the final score. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first or second or third listen every single day, depending on how many shows we put up on any given day. Going to bring in Darrell, who is live from Neville Arena covering the game. We're going to see how it sounds with all those folks walking behind him. But Darrell, this was far from Auburn's best game of the season. Honestly, one of the worst performances that they've seen, but they still find a way to win. And that's what this team has continued to do all season long.
Yeah, there were a lot of things that we were concerned about. First of all, the residual effect of a hangover from the Alabama game, Auburn being a little bit emotionally flat, Arkansas coming in here very, very desperate and needing a win, and they played that way. Listen, Arkansas's got three really good guards. Their backcourt is really good, and they showed tonight. They got to the basket a lot at will. And if Auburn wouldn't have settled for a lot of three-point shots, I felt like they could have gotten what they wanted inside, Zach, but they settled. And despite settling, and despite shooting under 40%, they made plays down the stretch when they needed to, hit free throws, and that's what elite teams do. They win when they're not playing their best.
Yeah, I didn't love the offensive approach in this game because of how the game was called. They were letting folks get physical around the basket. And to me, I wish they would have said, hey, Janai, hey, Chaney, hey, Dylan, just go get to the rim. And it seemed like when they tried that, it worked. But I don't know, there was a lot of lazy passing on the perimeter. And sometimes I wish they would have just put Janai in an ISO situation and say, hey, go cook. They're letting y'all play.
Yeah, Arkansas wasn't hitting threes either, but I think they realized that that was not going to be their game tonight.
Sure.
So they started going back inside and getting to the foul line. At one point, it was an 8-3 foul differential in the second half. And then once Auburn figured that out and started going to the basket with about 2.5 minutes left to go in the game, they went on another little mini run, about a 7-0 run, and that was the differentiator in the game. That iced the game. Chad's free throws, Denver's free throws. But, Zach, they kept trying to hit three. They were 0 for 11 at one point in the second half at three-pointers, and they kept shooting them. And I get it. You sometimes want to have shooters shoot and shoot your way out. But when you have a decided advantage down low and Arkansas is not guarding you on the block effectively, I hate that they went away from it and settled. But lesson learned in a victory, right? They played pretty good defense on that Z guy, that big Z. They made him try to do everything from the perimeter. He sucked shooting the basketball tonight. He had 2 air balls and was short on everything. Very good defensively on him. But, man, Arkansas's got 3 really quick guards, and Auburn had a really hard time keeping them from getting to the basket.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's 2 ways to look at this. One, I think it's okay to be disappointed that Auburn didn't look like the number 1 team in the country. I guess they really haven't looked like the number 1 team in the country over the last 2 weeks, with the exception of the game at Tuscaloosa. And thank goodness that they did in that game. But on the other side of that coin is, okay, like, this team is number 1, by far has the best resume in college basketball, one of the, like, a historically good resume. And, like, they're not peaking yet. Like, they still have so much to get better at. And you've talked about, it's better to learn from close wins than it is, close losses. And we haven't really seen, I don't know, this is one of the lazier games that I've seen from Tahad from a passing standpoint. And I think this will be good coaches tape for Bruce Pearl in situations like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Tahad was lazy passing the basketball. I think that Chad Baker-Mazara at times was a little bit lazy passing the basketball. Auburn got complacent sometimes. They weren't as crisp with ball movement. They weren't as disciplined when they tried to feed the ball down low. It was a little bit sloppy. Look, that being said, here's what I look at in a situation like this. Arkansas came in here. They had a game plan. They executed, and it still wasn't good enough. This is a team that went into Rupp and beat Kentucky playing a similar style. They wanted to keep the game in the 60s. They did that. And still Auburn by 7. And that's what I said earlier in the year. Auburn only shot 38%, only scored 67 points. But guess what? Defensively, they held Arkansas to 60, so they come away with the W.
Yes. Look, just win it. We talked about this before, and I do think you and I disagreed a little. Maybe it was Ben that disagreed with me. But I thought this had a lot of aspects of a trap game where you looked at what they did this past weekend, and then it's like, okay, I had breakfast this morning with John Neighbors, who I think you're sitting close to. And he's like, look, from an Arkansas point of view, it's like, I hope y'all are still just jacked up from Saturday's win. And, you haven't quite moved past that yet. And it kind of looks like that's what that was, where it's like, okay, this is just a sluggish game. We don't have to be as crisp. Arkansas is not as good as us. And it almost cost them, Darrell.
Yeah, it really did. That scared me because I know Arkansas is dangerous because they're talented. There are some teams that their record is who they are from a roster management standpoint, from a talent standpoint. Arkansas's record is a little deceiving. People forget they also beat Michigan earlier in the year in December, who's ranked number 12 in the country on a neutral floor.
On the road, too, I think. I don't think that was in Fayetteville.
No, I think it might have been in a tournament. Maybe it was a neutral site game. But, Michigan's a good basketball team. They're leading the Big Ten right now. And they're the number 12 team in the country, and Arkansas beat them.
Yeah, it was in the Jimmy V Classic.
There you go. So, that's it. This is not a win that should be it seems to me that Auburn plays a little tighter at home, other than that Oklahoma and Mississippi State game. Lately, they've played a little bit tighter at home in front of this crowd who was electric tonight. But again, Auburn didn't do what they needed to do or what they should have done, and they still came away with a 7-point victory. I think, we don't need to lose sight of that. That's a little frustrating, though, that you realize something's not working and you continually do it. And again, something else, in a very close game, Zach, you don't need to get teed up if you're Chad Baker-Mazara before the end of the first half.
Yeah, I know it's really easy to call out Chad, and a lot of people are doing it. And the result, he needs to quit getting teed up. No question about it. I don't know if a smile really warranted the technical. Like if he would have elbowed somebody, or if it would have been something like stepping over a dude, absolutely. I don't know if I really care if he's smiling at people.
Well, I can give you the whole context of this, and it'll help.
Okay.
This is where it's really cool being here. The fadeaway jumper he hit on the trip before, he turned around and said something to Arkansas's bench. The referee warned him. He said something to him coming down the floor. Okay, so you've been warned then. So you got it. The next time down he hits the three, he smiled, stared at the bench, and did his jersey like this to the Arkansas bench. Now, that in itself is weak to get a technical about.
Yeah.
But when you just get warned on the trip previously down the floor, all I'm saying is you have to be careful. Don't give the official a reason after he's warned you to do anything like that with 30 seconds left to go in the half. I get your point. In a vacuum, it's weak. But after getting warned, anything you do like that is going to be perceived as taunting, so just stay away from it. Don't take the chance.
Do you think Bruce is sitting him down after stuff like this and saying, like, hey, Chad, this is larger than you. This is about the team. This is about something historic. Do you think those conversations are happening, or do you think it's implied, even though it's been implied all year and it was still kind of happening? What do you think that dynamic is?
Well, I think Bruce sometimes lets the players police themselves, and I can tell you this, having them coming to my end of the court to go to the tunnel at halftime, Broom was getting into Chad Baker-Mazara pretty good.
Okay.
Walking into the tunnel. He was talking to him and telling him, I mean, it was animated, let's put it that way, head bob and that kind of stuff. And I think that's what you want leadership to do. I think Bruce might defer to his seniors and say, hey, internal police this. But yeah, there was a conversation, I'm sure, also in the locker room from Bruce saying, hey, come on, man. We don't need that to happen with 33 seconds left to go in the half when Auburn should have been holding for the last shot anyway. And,
sure,
31 seconds and he shoots the three, which, you take it, he hit it. But still, Auburn really should have had the last possession. That could have been big. I mean, those 2 points could have been big when the score was a 2-point game with 2 minutes left to go.
Yeah. Auburn takes down Arkansas 67-60. Who is your player of the game? Live chat, let us know. Got a feeling most people are going to say Janai Broom. Think you can make the case for Chad Baker-Mazara as well. Chaney Johnson, one of the best dunks I've seen in a hot minute. All that's coming up right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at TurboTax. This is a message from Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was dealing with piles of paperwork and frustrating forms, and then waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back. Now Taxes is easily uploading your forms to a TurboTax expert who's matched your unique tax situation. As an expert who's backed in the latest technology, which cross-checks millions of data points for 100% accuracy. And while they work on your taxes, you get live updates, all while you go about your day. No stressing, no worrying, no waiting. Now this is Taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now at TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantee. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first or second listen every single day. Recapping Auburn's 67-60 win over the Arkansas Razorbacks. Who is your player of the game? For me, it's Janai Broom. I think what he did off of the glass, 13 rebounds, I think was certainly imposing. And then, of course, leading the Tigers with 16 points. I think that's clear that it's Janai Broom. What do you think, Darrell?
No, I agree. He was a monster on the glass. He got big points when Auburn needed him. I wish he would have shot the three ball a little bit less. It wasn't falling for him tonight. I think he shot, too many threes. But he also did a good job.
0 for 3 from 3.
Yeah, he also did a really good job of distributing the basketball and finding the open cutter and the open man on the wing in the first half when Auburn did hit some outside shots. He was really good at getting the ball in the block and swinging it when they doubled him. And I think when you combine his point total, his rebounds, and I don't know how many assists he had, but he did a good job of finding the open man out of the block.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so many people hit me up on social because I say it over and over again, like, I don't love how many threes he takes. And it's great when he goes 2 for 4. Like, that's awesome. But on nights where it's 0 for 3, especially with the way the game was going, I just think you need the physicality down low for Janai. I think that would have had a larger impact on the game. And, I mean, I think Auburn wins by double digits if instead of those 3 threes, he had 3, shots around the basket, but whatever. That's fine. I think you can make the case for Chaney Johnson. The fast break dunk that he had, I think was my favorite dunk of the year.
It was electric, and it happened down at the end where I'm sitting, and I knew it was coming. It was weird, Zach. The Arkansas guy stopped at half court. It's like he just conceded it. He didn't want to be a poster on some young child's wall, so he just went ahead and said, I don't want to get in this freeze frame. I'm going to let him dunk. And then guess what? He came right down the floor the next time on an alley-oop. It really changed the whole vibe in this building. And people got up. They were screaming. They were loud. They were really imploring Auburn on the defensive end. That was a nice swing in the game as well. But, yeah, he does that. He's a guy that when he – and to Arkansas's credit, that big Z dude blocked like 2 or 3 dunks that Auburn had in the paint.
Yeah. No, he was great around the basket.
And let one of them – and let somebody know it one time, and he got teed up. And then Cal – got a warning for being out of the coach's box. So they lost their composure during that stretch a little bit, and that became a 5-point trip for Auburn. So, again,
when Chaney had the fast break dunk, I thought he jumped too early. I thought he jumped. I'm like, can he go? Oh, he can go that far.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Dude, he's a special finisher around the rim. And it's just it's really an art of lifting the bench, lifting your team, lifting the arena. It's a nice asset to have on your team. There's no doubt.
Yeah. A lot of the live chat very interested in other action happening in the SEC. We'll discuss that once that goes final if we're still here. So when you look at the rest of Auburn's schedule, Darrell, and I think some of these games matter more or less depending on what else happens in the SEC tonight. And once again, we'll chime on that once it goes final. But we said, okay, after Bama, the next three super manageable. And we saw that tonight with Arkansas, closer than we thought it would be, but still they got the win. Georgia at home on Saturday, and then Ole Miss next Wednesday, who's still ranked. We'll see if they stay ranked over the course of this week. I just kind of feel like they're slipping more and more as the season goes on. We'll talk more about that later. But the road trip to Kentucky, to Texas A&M. Did Texas A&M get exposed last night? Like, do we feel as good about them moving forward? I don't know. And then, the home game, obviously, to wrap up the season against Alabama. I still think there's a real shot that this team doesn't lose again in the regular season.
Well, I think I'm feeling a lot better, like I told you before, about the game at Rupp. And I know that Kentucky at one point tonight had Lance Dahl sitting next to me, and obviously he was watching the Kentucky game.
Yeah, host of Locked On Kentucky.
Yes, with some vested interest. And I think Kentucky pulled away, but I think at one point in the second half, it was a close basketball game. I don't know what the final was when I'm here.
82-61 over.
They pulled away. So that game, though, in Rupp, I think Auburn has played a lot better on the road than they did last year. And I think, again, I've gone on record saying if there's a team that's going to break that streak or break that curse, I think it's this team. And I think it's because not only how talented they are, but how much of a veteran team. The Texas A&M game still concerns me on the road because Buzz, just his coaching style, he always draws something up that gives Bruce trouble. And then Auburn can't come out Saturday and be complacent against Georgia because they think, oh, it's Georgia, they're struggling. I think Auburn will be too much for Georgia, and I think this may have been the residual wash-off game happened tonight, and Auburn still won by 7. I think they'll be ready, raring to go Saturday against Georgia, having this game in between.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the fact that you had such a bad shooting night and you were able to Auburn shot 40% from the floor. 40% from the floor, and they won by 7 against an Arkansas team that was fighting for its life in the NCAA tournament. I mean, on the TV broadcast, Darrell, they said over and over and over again, Arkansas's on the bubble. Arkansas's on the bubble. The SEC's got all these teams in the NCAA tournament, according to Joe Lunardi's bracket and all of that. Arkansas's on the bubble. Boy, it'd be huge if they got a win against the top-ranked Auburn Tigers, obviously. This was a huge opportunity for Arkansas, and there were definitely stretches of the game where it felt like Arkansas wanted it more than Auburn. But down the stretch, when Arkansas took the lead, Auburn stepped up and said, hey, we need to finish this. We shouldn't be in this situation. Sure, we all agree, but we need to finish this. And how many times have we seen games slip away and Auburn wasn't able to step up and finish it? I do think it's moments like this. That do show that this team does have a different attitude and level to them versus previous teams that we've seen.
Yeah, because I've always felt like if teams come out – look, Auburn shot 40%, and I think they shot, 15% from 3? I don't even know what the final total was, but it was abysmal. It was awful. And Arkansas probably shot 3 or 4% better than Auburn from the field. I think Auburn had more free throws made. That was a big deciding factor as well. I'm not subscribing to the theory that Arkansas is on the bubble. That is ludicrous to me. I don't see it. I guess they're giving the SEC so much credit, but this team is.
You're saying they shouldn't be in the tournament?
Absolutely not. Okay. I just don't. I don't think that they do have 2 quality wins. I get it, one with Boogie Flan, one without, but they also have some bad losses. And I don't know what their strength of schedule is, Ken Palm, all that. I mean, what's their record now? I can't pull it up, but is it like six?
They're 15-11 overall. They're 4-9 in the SEC.
Yeah, I don't understand. I mean,
if they went out, if they get to 20 wins, I think that's enough. But
right.
I don't think they're going to do that. But if they did win out, they'd have wins over Missouri and Mississippi State. So those would be their potentially resume building wins.
I'm talking about right now
on the road. Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
sure.
That the whole narrative changes for me if they win out. Then I would say yes, they belong to be on the bubble, first four in, whatever it is, last four in. But right now, I just don't. I mean, the resume with Michigan and Kentucky, I just don't think is enough. When you look at where Kentucky's at, I mean, Kentucky's not the normal top 3, 4 in the league that they normally are. So,
yeah. So when you look at Auburn's remaining schedule, I mean, what do you think the most likely record is when you look at these final 5 games? Georgia and Ole Miss at home, at Kentucky, at A&M, and then obviously they host Alabama.
I see them going 4-1.
Okay. And dropping one of the road games?
Yes, either Kentucky or A&M comes.
Live chat, what do you think? What is Auburn's record to wrap up the season? I think I agree. I think that's the most likely. But individually, when we're going into each of these games individually and we're picking this, in a third segment on a Friday, as we typically do, I'm picking Auburn beat Georgia this weekend. I'm picking Auburn to beat Ole Miss next Wednesday. I'm picking Auburn to win in Rupp. I'm picking Auburn to win in College Station. And I'm picking Auburn to win at home against Alabama in the regular season finale. It's just they got to trip up somewhere. They're going to have to lose a game they're not supposed to lose. And look, if they play like they did tonight, on one of those road games, or even home against Bama, or even home against Ole Miss, they will probably lose.
Absolutely.
So they've got to figure out how to – I don't know. We also have seen this team kind of play the level of its competition sometimes too, until the final few minutes, and they put the pedal to the metal and they kind of turn things around.
If you think about it, they will be favored in every single basketball game from here on out, even through the SEC tournament. I mean, Auburn will be favored every game in the regular season. They'll be favored if they keep advancing into the SEC tournament. They might, if they keep advancing in the NCAA tournament, who knows? But so that's pretty amazing to have that bullseye on your back. And look, there's a reason why they said, weary is the head that wears the crown. Mm-hmm. It's a grind. It's an added pressure. It's an added responsibility. And to their credit tonight, they played through it and won a game. Look, again, Arkansas is talented. They may not have put it all together yet and play with the type of, chemistry and team that they need to have, but they have some individual dudes that Knox kid is really nice too, and he came out of nowhere. So they've got some players.
Arkansas is a good team. I think they're better than what their record is, but how much of that is Cal? How much of that is a lot of it's transfer portal? Can you build a team in one offseason? Truly, I don't know. So Aiden Holloway has a turnover for Bama, and Alabama loses to Missouri 110-98. You talk about, Bama was the team kind of breathing down Auburn's neck. Now it almost shifts to, okay, Florida has a pretty manageable remaining schedule.
I don't think Florida's losing the rest of the year.
Florida plays Bama, and that's kind of it. That's kind of it when you look at Florida's schedule. I'll
do they play Texas A&M?
They do, but my opinion on them has changed, and they play them at home. So they go to Florida, goes to LSU, they go to Georgia, they host A&M, they go to Bama, and they host Ole Miss. I think the conversation now is you got to win enough to keep separation away from Florida.
You got a 2-game lead on Florida, which is nice, but they have the head-to-head against you. I mean, that's for winning it. That's for winning it outright. Yeah, that's just for winning it outright. If you ended up in a tie, they would, obviously for winning it, you would share the title, but you would get the number 1 seed in the SEC tournament if you were Florida that came down to head-to-head. That's the only tiebreaker. But who cares, right? At the end of the day, Auburn's got that they got a 2-game cushion. if you figure Florida doesn't lose again, which is going to be tough to go into, but even if you figure Florida loses one more, then Auburn could lose two more and still win the league. That's why that 2-game cushion is huge.
Yeah, Florida playing at Bama, to me, like, that might be a weird situation where it's better for Auburn if Bama wins.
Oh, it could be absolutely, it could be one of those situations where Bama beating Florida and Auburn winning that same day clinches the title for Auburn. So if you're an Auburn fan, you have to put that aside for one game and do its best for the school.
We'll see. Maybe they both drop one and Auburn just takes care of business. We'll see. But I don't know. You got to love some of the narratives that are going to come out now. Like, did Auburn break Bama? People are asking. They scored like 98 points and lost.
Well, they were getting beat by 16, 17 at one point. So they did make it, they did come back a little bit, make it respectable.
Yeah.
Lost by
98
12
to 110. That's crazy. Like, let's just not play defense ever. It's crazy to me.
That's an NBA score.
Yeah. Goodness gracious. Yeah. So like, I think that's a big deal. In the sense that, like, I don't think it necessarily changes the situation for Auburn, but I think it makes you pay more attention to Florida than Auburn. So can Florida take care of business? And you hate that Auburn doesn't play Florida again, but oh well, can't control that. All right, final thoughts. Anything else from tonight that we didn't spend enough time talking about? Any players' games that stood out to you that we didn't really talk about? Denver, 9 points, 3 of 9 shooting. Not a very efficient night for Denver. He was okay defensively. I don't think it was his best game defensively either. Miles Kelly, I felt like had a really sneaky good first half, and then he kind of disappeared. I didn't love that. I thought this was on pace. I was actually texting with somebody. So I'm like, okay, this could be a Miles Kelly game, and he just kind of stopped.
He did a really good job. One of the aspects of his game, and this is where you can see stuff in the arena. Man, I don't know what his final stat sheet said, but he did a really good job. Yeah, I was going to say from a rebounding standpoint, it seems like he had some big. Yeah, from a guard position, Zach, that's pretty clutch to have eight rebounds from a guard.
Yeah. Yeah, and then just an overall off night for Tahad Pettiford. 1 of 4 from the floor, 4 points, had 4 assists, but 4 personal fouls in just 17 minutes. This was not a good night for Tahad Pettiford.
He reaches too much. I mean, just defensively, you watch him, he gets called for fouls quickly when he's on the floor, and it's because he doesn't move his feet, and he reaches. But this game wasn't. Every game's big, but this game wasn't a bright light game. It wasn't a very big game, and big game Tahad shows up in the bigger ones. That's all I can say.
Yeah, no, I think that's proven true at this point. Is Locked On Bama live right now? No, I don't think they are. I was going to say, everybody go support Locked On Bama real quick. All right, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Darrell, thank you for joining from Neville. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Tried something. Trying something different. Darrell did a good job covering it. You can see more of his thoughts over at thebarnauburn.com. Please like this video. Please subscribe, and we'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.